With Joe Giglio, as we are just 2 days away from the first round of the 2021 NFL Draft. The Philadelphia Eagles, of course, sit at number 12. Rumors flying everywhere, including the one today that I think just has everyone shaking in their boots. The rumor, Tony Pauline, with the idea the Eagles love Kwity Paye, defensive end out of Michigan, possibly the number 12 pick. I wouldn't be shocked if the Eagles traded down. Took out Kwity Paye. Let me throw this out there, and then I want to tell you what we're going to do tonight. I want this to be the most interactive one of all these draft shows that we've done here on the WIP Facebook page. But my first initial thought is I think Kwity Paye would be a good draft pick by the Eagles. I think he's a good player. I think he's a versatile player. Kind of reminds me of Brandon Graham coming out of Michigan. Got a great story behind him. I think he's a hard worker. I think he's going to be a good player in the NFL. So I'd be on board with Kwity Paye. I know everyone is all, oh my goodness, we got to get a playmaker, this, that. The Eagles have a long-term need on the defensive line. Fletcher Cox, over the age of 30. Defensive ends, Brandon Graham, over the age of 30, and I think probably 1 or 2 years left. Josh Sweat, free agent after the season. Derek Barnett, free agent after the season. Like, there's nothing here in Philadelphia long-term on the defensive line that you feel great about. Maybe, Javon Hargrave late last year kind of came on and showed why the Eagles paid him money, but on the edge, pass rushing-wise, there's nothing. If the Eagles believe Kwity Paye can become one of the comps I saw was Everson Griffin. I think there's a Brandon Graham element to him. He's good against the run. If they think he could be a good Pro Bowl level defensive end in the NFL for a long time, I'd be fine with Kwity Paye. Maybe the Eagles trade back instead of taking him at 12, but I would be okay with the Eagles taking Kwity Paye defensive end out of Michigan. Would you? Hop in the comments here on the WIP Facebook page and let me know. But here's what I want to do tonight. We've done a lot of draft shows. You guys know my thoughts. I'm a J.C. Horn guy. He'd be my number one guy, the corner out of South Carolina. I don't want Devontae Smith. I like the idea of an offensive lineman if Slater's there. I'd be fine with Kwity Paye. I'd be fine with a trade back from 12. I'd only trade up if it is for Kyle Pitts, the tight end of Florida. So we've talked about a lot of different things the last couple days and weeks. This is what we're going to do tonight. Let's do an AMA here. Ask me anything. Any Eagles question, draft-related question, anything you throw on the Facebook page here. I want your comments, your questions, anything you throw up. I will answer, and we'll just kind of go. Like, nothing prepared. I always have a few things I want to talk about, but wherever you go with the questions, wherever you go with the comments, I will go there, and I will answer them. Let's do an AMA here, Eagles and draft-style AMA, about this year's draft, about the future, about the Howie Roseman, about my favorite players, whatever. Whatever you want to know, I will throw out there and answer the questions. Who we got here? Let's see. We got AMA. Bill said, here we go. We'll go with Johns. Who is better, Smith or Chase? Smith or Chase, obviously. We're talking about Jamar Chase, wide receiver LSU. Devontae Smith, wide receiver out of Alabama. I would say it's Chase. I think there's a reason Chase is going to go within the first 5 or 6 picks. I think Chase right now, if I had to guess, if I'm going to give you my mock draft as of right now, I would say it's going to be Lawrence 1 to the Jaguars, Wilson 2 to the Jets, Lance 3 to the 49ers. I think it's going to go Pitts 4 to the Atlanta Falcons, and I would say Jamar Chase 5 to the Cincinnati Bengals. I just think he's a strong kid, a bigger kid. One of the comps I saw him was remember Sterling Sharp way back in the day with the Green Bay Packers, like a physical wide receiver. Devontae Adams to his game. I think Chase can be a really good player. Now, I do wonder because he doesn't have that prototypical 6'3" size, but I do think he's going to be a really good receiver. And I worry about Devontae Smith's size, 166. I was told earlier that we're overthinking this. He's going to be a great player. 166. I go back to that 166-pound wide receiver. That is small. That is frail. I worry about Smith staying healthy and being able to get open consistently at the NFL level. So I go Jamar Chase over Devontae Smith. Let's go to most underrated player in the draft. That is a great question. Let me give you this. First round, the safety out of TCU, Trayvon Moehrig, I think he's an underrated player. I think we might look back and say, man, that guy went in the 20s or late 20s, maybe 30 range. I mean, he's going to be a ball hawk safety in the NFL. I think he's going to be a really good player. And I think both running backs out of UNC, North Carolina, Javonte Williams, bigger physical back, and Michael Carter, more of a shifty guy. I think they're both going to be really good NFL running backs. Really impact players, could make a Pro Bowl. You're going to have them on your fantasy team next year. So I'll go with those three. Safety out of TCU, Moehrig. Williams, Javonte Williams, a running back out of UNC. and the other running back at UNC, Michael Carter, my most underrated players in the 2021 draft. What do we got here? What do the Eagles get back for? Let me pull it back up. What do the Eagles get back for Zach Ertz? That's a great question. I would say Zach Ertz's value right now, and there was a story a couple days ago, rumor, so the Eagles will trade Zach Ertz by the end of the draft. Like before the draft starts or by the end of the draft, Zach Ertz is going to be traded. So if we go on the premise that the relationship between Ertz and the Eagles is over, and personally I wish it wasn't. I love Zach Ertz, one of my favorite Eagles of all time. I always remember the catch to help win the Super Bowl, the 3-by-1, the clear out, boom, Foles to Ertz, touchdown. But if this is over now, and if they are going to move Zach Ertz, I would go back to the way Howie Roseman used DeMarco Murray a couple of years ago, the way he used Byron Maxwell, the way he moved Kiko Alonso. He didn't necessarily get picks back for the players. He used the player plus a pick to move up in the draft. So scenario I threw out last time, I'll throw it out again. What is Zach Ertz worth? Is he worth a fourth? Is he worth a third? You could assign value to him depending on which team you are and what you think. His salary obviously plays into it. The need for a contract plays into it. His injury last year plays into it. I still think there's good football left in Zach Ertz. And I think a team that is closer to winning probably would kind of boost up what they value him as and what they're willing to give the Eagles versus a team that's further off. So the example I'll give is Eagles sit at number 37 in the NFL draft. Okay, so if they want to get back in the first round, let's say a receiver's there, Kadarius Toney's there, Terrace Marshall's there, they want to get back in bottom of the first round. How about the Eagles trade number 37 and Zach Ertz to the Buffalo Bills for number 30? 7 picks around that area. Feels like probably a fourth-round pick in terms of value to swap. Instead of swapping fourth-round picks or giving them a fourth, give them Zach Ertz. They're close. They're a really good team. I thought tight end for the Bills was decent but not great last year. They could use another pass catcher for Josh Allen. That's how I could see Zach Ertz being used in a trade here. John said, any chance we take a quarterback? I like Trey Lance, and if you take a quarterback, who would it be? I do think there's a chance to take a quarterback. I think there's a very slim chance, minuscule chance, they take one in the first round. Look, the Eagles smoke screens, not telling the truth, kind of being evasive. This is what they do, right? This is what NFL teams do around the draft. And the Eagles are totally unpredictable. We know they want to be a quarterback factory. So it's a never say never. But I can't follow the logic of the Eagles taking a quarterback in the first round when they had the 6th pick. If they really liked any of the quarterbacks in this class that were semi-attainable, so let's just say, anything beyond the top 2, because they could have moved to 3, right? They could have made the trade with Miami. They were already at 6, where Miami ended up anyway. Instead of San Francisco doing it, if the Eagles wanted Trey Lance, or they wanted Justin Fields, or they wanted Mac Jones, they could have made a trade from 6 to 3. So they could have had almost any one of these quarterbacks, or at least 3 of the 5 of them. They chose not to, which tells me they don't really like these quarterbacks or they like Jalen Hurts better. So I'd be shocked if they take a quarterback. I don't see it. I don't believe it. As far as later in the draft, I think they're going to take a quarterback. They don't have anything on this roster right now behind Joe Flacco and obviously Jalen Hurts. So they need another developmental quarterback. I'll give you one. I think he's going to get picked before they would pull the trigger on it, but Kyle Trask, quarterback out of Florida. I've heard his name thrown around a little bit. Brian Johnson, who quarterback coach, who has known Jalen Hurts his whole life. He came from Florida last year where he was the offensive coordinator. So there's a very, a pretty strong connection between those two guys. And I can see where the Eagles take one the 4th round and almost have a insurance policy backup plan, another option to Jalen Hurts. Kind of like when, in a much smaller scale, but like remember when the Washington took Kirk Cousins in the 4th round, they had RG3, just another option to develop alongside the young quarterback. I think they'll take a quarterback. Trask is a name if he's somehow still there later on in the draft. Davis Mills out of Stanford, another one. I mean, if any of those guys are there in the 4th round, that's when I would think it's likely the Eagles take another quarterback here. Let's see. Aniel, if they plan on getting rid of Ertz, should they get another tight end like Freiermuth or Tommy Tremble? Yeah, I mean, they should. That was Aniel's question. Someone else said, why do you keep answering the same guy? Well, he's asking the best questions. I mean, this thing moves fast here on Facebook. I just got to look down and see the best question in front of me. But anyway, you leave a question. I will try to get to it. Tight end, yes. I do think it's actually a sneaky need if they do move on from Zach Ertz, because really what's there? I mean, Richard Rodgers played well last year, But Richard Rodgers he's been a journeyman tight end. I mean, I wouldn't count on Richard Rodgers playing as well next year as he did the year before. So, yeah, I think they need something else behind Dallas Goedert. Plus, Goddard's a free agent to be, and he's been banged up as well. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if tight end becomes a thing they pick in the mid-rounds. And they do have a lot of picks. So, they have a lot of picks they could spend on players. And I would expect a young tight end to be drafted and developed starting this year. And really, that's probably independent of Ertz. I mean, even if he stayed, I still think they take a young tight end here. Do you think that Wentz will be great in Indy? I do not. I think Carson Wentz's days of being a great quarterback are over. Now, do I think he'll be better next year than he was this year? I mean, I don't know how he could be worse. So, yes, I do think Carson Wentz will bounce back a little bit and play to a more, a playable level and a level of a starting quarterback and be a requisite, I would say average. I think he'd still be below average by NFL standards. But I think he'll be better in Indianapolis. Great again? No, I think those days are over. Right? I don't think Carson Wentz has physically greatness left in him. I think that the knee injury and the back injury zapped the athlete that was there. And the accuracy issues have always been there. The holding the ball too long issues have always been there. We'll see if Frank Reich coaches some of that stuff back out of him, gets his fundamentals going. Here's how here's how Wentz is really good again. If Carson Wentz is really good again, it's because of a couple things. They made him a game manager in Indianapolis where he only has to throw the ball 20, 25, 30 times. They run it well. Jonathan Taylor's a great running back. They brought back Marlon Mack. I mean, they've got a lot. Naheem Hines, tremendous backfield. Offensive line should be better than it was here last year. The defense gets in the ball in short fields. He is not asked to do a ton. He could rip it down the field when they asked him once in a while, but it's more of a run-based offense. He makes simple throws. He makes throws when they need him to. They win, and everyone's like, wow, he's leading the team. But I don't think MVP or great are ever going to be in the conversation again with Carson Wentz. Denny said, what are your thoughts about the Eagles possibly talking to the Falcons about veteran receiver Julio Jones? I love Julio Jones. I mean, he's an all-time great player. I don't think it fits the Eagles' situation right now. We know they have cap issues, and we know Julio Jones is an older player that's had injury issues. I just don't feel like the two situations mesh. It feels like Julio Jones has a couple of years left, expensive. You worry about injuries. Eagles are probably a year or two away. It'd be cool if it meshed, that it was at the same time. Look, a year from now, let's say the Falcons didn't trade Julio, and he showed he's still got a little bit left in the tank. And then after next season, they want to trade him. Eagles have a bunch of cap room. Maybe Jalen Hurts worked out. Eagles have a bunch of draft picks to trade the Falcons. I could see a scenario then. I don't think the two sides, I don't think it works together. But, would I take Julio Jones on the Eagles to help out Jalen Hurts? Of course. I mean, Julio Jones could still play. And he would obviously be the number one here to nurture a young receiver group. I would never say never with Howie Roseman. The names I've seen are the Patriots, the Titans, the Ravens. Those are the kind of the teams I've seen in the mix for Julio Jones. I would never count the Eagles out of a trade for a big player, especially at a position of need. And if they don't draft a receiver, maybe they have something up their sleeves. But I would guess no on Julio, though it'd be cool to watch him in Midnight Green here. What else we got here? Billy here. We're doing an AMA. Just hopped in. AMA, draft style, Eagles stuff, anything you want. AMA, Joe Giglio Draft Show here on Facebook. What do you think this coaching staff can do with the players in the team now and with those in the draft? Well, I'm excited to watch this coaching staff and to see what they are and what they could do. It's such a young staff, youngest coaching staff in the NFL. I know Nick Sirianni's getting beat up by everyone locally, nationally. He's kind of a punchline right now with the rock, paper, scissors and his personality. I try to block all that stuff out and just look at what the coach has done in his career. He obviously brings passion, which is awesome. And I think he's got a good resume in terms of offensive background, wide receivers in a lot of different stops, offensive coordinator of a versatile offense, a multiple offense in Indianapolis. So I'm excited for Sirianni. And as far as the coaching staff, Shane Steichen, the offensive coordinator, he worked with the Chargers last year and Justin Herbert, so he's got experience with a young quarterback. And Brian Johnson, the new quarterbacks coach that was the offensive coordinator last year of Florida, he's known Jalen Hurts his whole life. So I think they can help Jalen take the next step. And then defensively, I'm excited to see what Jonathan Gannon does as a defensive coordinator. I think he's the X factor of this coaching staff that we don't really know much about. But, I mean, the background for Jonathan Gannon is good. Matt Eberflus, defensive coordinator of the Colts, he was under him. And before that, he kind of cut his teeth with Mike Zimmer. I've always respected Mike Zimmer as one of the best defensive minds in the NFL. So if he could build a defense anything like Eberflus has built in Indianapolis or Mike Zimmer's had for years now in Minnesota, and before that, Cincinnati, Dallas, wherever he's been, that's going to be a good defense. So I'm excited for this coaching staff. I was a fan of the last one. I wasn't one that was always saying fire Doug or fire Schwartz. I thought they were well coached for years. Last year obviously went off the rails, but fresh blood, fresh coaching staff, fresh ideas. I do think there's some players here last couple of years, specifically wide receivers. Maybe Sirianni has an impact there because of his background that those guys have been disappointments. Are they truly busts? Can they not play? Or maybe the coaching staff didn't unlock what they had. So we'll find out soon, but I'm excited about the coaching staff, wide receivers specifically. Ken said, "What's up, Joe?" Just talking draft, Ken. Happy to have you in as we're 2 nights away from the NFL draft. Mark said, if we can't get Pitts, then I want Surtain or Horn. I feel similar. And Ryan said they need to take Horn if they stay at 12. Yes, Horn's my guy. If my big board has J.C. Horn number 1, I think he's going to be a star NFL corner. And I love how physical he is. Every time I read something about J.C. Horn, it's like, well, he can be a great NFL corner, but he just has to watch the penalties because he's physical and hands-on. And when I read that, I think about Jalen Ramsey, who's probably the most physical and hands-on corner and the best corner in the NFL right now. Him and a few others come to mind, but he's the best. And that's his game. And I don't mind. I'd rather have a physical corner than a passive corner just going to watch you make catches in front of him and hope to make a tackle. So will I take a couple penalties in his rookie year from J.C. Horn because he's all over a wide receiver? Fine. But I'd rather my corner all over a wide receiver than 10 yards back just watching him catch things. I think J.C. Horn is going to be a star. Joey said, I think Devontae Smith is the pick at 12, all-time leading touchdown leader in Alabama history. 41 touchdowns, that's saying something. Great college player, tremendous college player, 166 pounds. I keep coming back to that because it blows me away. I just don't think he's going to end up being a true number 1 wide receiver in the NFL. Will he be productive and good? I'm sure. I mean, the guy's a player. He can run routes. He can get open and catch the ball. I'm not taking just another wide receiver at number 12. I think there's better players there, more impact players with Horn, Surtain, offensive lineman, defensive lineman that can make more of an impact on the game than him. Do you pick Najee if he's there at 37? Najee, the running back, of course, from Alabama. So it's interesting. I like Javonte Williams, the running back out of North Carolina, even a little bit better than Najee Harris at Alabama. But the premise is interesting because I don't know if many people out there right now watching, listening, and by the way, full draft show Thursday night on WIP. Phillies play a day game that day. Myself, Glenn Macnow, Ike Reese, Elliot Shore-Parks, Howard Eskin, we're all together. Can't wait for Thursday as I take you up to and through the Eagles draft pick. But as far as if we were to poll people and say, give me some needs for the Eagles, I think people would say corner, wide receiver, maybe offensive line, maybe defensive line, maybe linebacker. We could probably list the 4 or 5 positions you think they need something at. I don't think many people would say running back because this town, I've said it for a year, we overrate Miles Sanders. Good running back, not special, but he's a good young running back. I don't think many people would say running back. I do think running back's a need, especially on a Jalen Hurts-led team. I really believe the best way to build a team with Jalen Hurts is to have a Ravens-like offense. RPOs, let Jalen either pull it back, run it himself, or find a receiver down the field. Big physical tight ends, speed on the outside. But what the Ravens have done is that they've had a stable of running backs. Not just one guy. They've had 3 or 4 guys. They rotate them in and out, and they can all play with Lamar. And the Eagles need to think to do that. So whether it's Najee Harris at 37, I would consider it there if he's on the board, or a running back in the 3rd round. Get another running back because, Miles Sanders, for as good as he is, he's not a bell cow. He's not running the ball 20, 25 times a game. He's fumbled. He's had physical issues. I don't think we have that kind of back here. So get another guy. So if Miles could run the ball 15 times effectively, maybe a couple 3 or 4 catches in there, and that's his touches for the day, and maybe you get another running back that could, have 10. And then you have a backfield. Like last year in Indianapolis with Sirianni, the Colts had that, where they had Taylor emerge over the course of the season. Jonathan Taylor emerged and became the guy, but it was also Marlon Mack was supposed to start the season. Not Najee, not Naheem Hines was the guy there most of the time. They had backs kind of emerged and it became a stable of running backs, not just one guy, I would definitely go after another running back. Jerry said there are really good running backs that will be there in the third round. I think so, too. Carter from North Carolina will be there. I mean, there's some guys. Chuba Hubbard is one of the coolest names. I don't know if he's quite third-round guy, maybe fourth or fifth, but kid at Oklahoma State. So there's going to be some guys. I mean, there are always some guys that are there moving down the draft. Book will be great in the NFL. Nobody's talking about. Book, like Ian Book, the quarterback out of Notre Dame. We'll see. We'll see on him. I'm not sure. AMA, Ask Me Anything here. Eagles draft show. And the big rumor today was Kwity Paye, defensive end out of Michigan, who I could just hear it now. People are going to be upset at that pick. I would not be surprised if Kwity Paye is the pick by the Eagles. The Eagles have had, well, in every time the Eagles have had a top half of the first round pick since 1989, 88, somewhere around there. Every time they've had a pick within the first 15 or 16 picks, right? Because the NFL expanded, so half became 16. But you get the point I'm making. Anytime they've had a pick in the top half of the first round for 3 decades, they've gone with one of 3 spots. Quarterback, I don't think that happens this year. Offensive lineman or defensive lineman. So as much as we talk up wide receiver, as much as we talk up corner, I mean, this franchise has a type. When they have high picks, they build the lines or the quarterback position. I don't think they're going quarterback. Offensive line is always in play. I would love Rashawn Slater here. I don't think he's going to be on the board. And then defensive line. So whether it's Kwity Paye or it's Jalen Phillips out of Miami, why would any of us be shocked if they go offense or defensive lineman? This is what the Eagles do. And we could laugh at that and say, well, this is why they stink right now. And you might be right to an extent. But they also have won a lot of football games for the last 25 years. So, I mean, that formula, which really Andy Reid kind of, brought into a large extent. I mean, think about those Reid draft picks in the first round. There was a lot of them that fell into that kind of spell, especially early in his tenure. So Donovan or Corey Simon, like they built through the lines, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do it again. Ryan said, this draft is wide receiver, edge rush heavy, not corner. They need the corner. Yeah, I mean, that's part of it, like the strategy to when you pick who you pick. It's not just, oh, we need this. It's okay. Is there going to be another guy? Let's just use wide receiver corner, okay? Because that's the one we keep talking about. So let's say they're on the board number 12. Devontae Smith is there. Alabama wide receiver, Heisman Trophy winner, incredibly productive, as someone pointed out in the comments. J.C. Horn is there. Cornerback, big physical corner out of South Carolina. What's more likely? Getting a wide receiver at 37, second round, that can have a career like or impact like Devontae Smith, or getting a corner there at 37, top of the second round, that will have a career and an impact like J.C. Horn. I think it's much more likely you find a wide receiver at 37 that's as good or better than Devontae Smith in the NFL than you do find a guy that has a chance, real chance, to be a number 1 corner like J.C. Horn. So I'm with you, Ryan. I would go corner at 12, figure out wide receiver later on in the draft. Jerry said, people need to realize that Paye's numbers are down because of what they asked him to do. You draft by projection, not by numbers. I agree on that. Yeah, I think we're all sports fans, right? We all watch the big games, depending on if you have an alma mater, and maybe you're a college football junkie, but I feel like most people in Philadelphia, this area, it's not a big college football town. It just isn't. And we're an NFL city, Eagles, we're a pro town, and like the people that are going to be upset or already are upset at the idea of Kwity Paye. How many games you watch of Kwity Paye? I mean, really, how many games last year did you sit down in the last couple of years and study Kwity Paye on the field? He's not a quarterback. He's not a running back or a wide receiver. He's a defensive lineman that was asked at times to play inside as well, stop the run well. So you got to draft on projection, on size, on work ethic, on what the coaches are saying. I have no problem with Kwity Paye. I mean, the comp I saw from a draft expert, not just some guy, was Everson Griffin, who had a tremendous career with the Minnesota Vikings. And I think about Jonathan Gannon coming from the Vikings. Everson Griffin was a star with the Vikings. I could see why Kwity Paye maybe is a kind of a building block for a new defense that Jonathan Gannon is trying to build here in Philadelphia. Jerry said, what did you do to Cataldi this morning? He was crying about your critique of his draft picks. He thinks you're picking him. I have no idea. I have no idea what I did to Angelo. I did write on our website, and you can go check it out. I think it's maybe on the Facebook page somewhere, that I think drafting Devontae Smith would be a mistake. Now, I guess I'm trying to think, because I usually listen to Angelo, and I'll be on Angelo tomorrow morning at 7, hopping on his show. But I usually try to listen to Angelo when I'm taking my kids to school in the morning, to my daughter to preschool. So, like, I did hear him. He said the other day that the pick he would approve of the most is Devontae Smith. So I guess we're on opposite sides. I don't want Devontae Smith. He does. I'm not critiquing Angelo. He's the one that's critiquing me all the time. Anyway, the Phillies are on, Joe. I know. I got TV on in front. I mean, we're doing this till the start of the Phillies game coming up in a few minutes. Pittsburgh trading back up for best player in the draft, best tight end prospect since Winslow. Yeah. I mean, he's one of the greatest tight ends prospects in a long time. Now, often tight ends end up being, we don't know where they came from. Right? Like, Rob Gronkowski, a second-round pick, back issue. George Kittle, late-round pick. So it's not usually the first-round pick with tight ends that pop, but this kid, he's just different. He is just different, and I think he's going to be an absolute star. We had this one here. I don't trust Howie picking wide receivers at all. That's my only fear on waiting until the second round to get a weapon. Well, if you don't trust him in the second round, why do you trust him in the first? Look, the impact of first-round wide receivers is overrated. I mean, last year, I believe there were 6 first-round receivers selected. And not that those guys couldn't play. Not they're going to be they're going to be good players in the NFL, probably 4 or 5 of the 6 of them. Do you know how many of those teams last year? Because I think we look at wide receiver as instant impact. And in a sense, yes, because you can instantly put them on the field and see production. Like, oh, he caught the pass. Oh, he had a touchdown. But it doesn't translate to win. So 6 teams last year selected a wide receiver in the first round. And they were, high-profile players. So I'm at Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Reagor, of course, here, Brandon Ayuk, Justin Jefferson. How can we forget? 6 teams. Do you know how many of those 6 teams had a winning record last season? 0. Not one. They all had 500 or losing records. And some of those guys, Jefferson in particular, put up big numbers. Jefferson was a Pro Bowler, outstanding star player. Other guys, hit or miss, some good, some bad, some injuries. But they all showed flashes. CeeDee Lamb showed flashes. Ayuk showed flashes. They had big games here and there. Their teams didn't win. Like, we overrate the impact of a wide receiver, a young wide receiver. Do they need more weapons, the Eagles? Yes. But I don't think they need to go overboard and ignore defensive line, offensive line, corner throughout this draft because they need to get more wide receivers. And to go back to the coaching thing we talked about, maybe Nick Sirianni can find a way to unlock more out of the wide receivers they have. I think Jefferson made an instant impact. Yeah, they went 7-9. I mean, yeah, sure. Justin Jefferson made an impact, and it didn't lead to wins. Like, wide receivers don't lead to wins. They don't. The position, I think, and I'm not picking on you in particular, ask that question. Just all of us. We've got caught up in fantasy football. Like, wow, I won my fantasy football league as my 3 receivers put up points. Cool. That's not the NFL. Like, that doesn't lead to victories. And you go back and look at first-round wide receivers over the years. Often second, third-round guys outproduce them. Metcalf and Brown over the last couple of years, McLaurin, they've outproduced the first-round receivers in their own classes. And I just don't think it leads to wins. So if the Eagles were on the board and there was a guy there that was certain to be a superstar wide receiver, a game-changing wide receiver, a Julio Jones type, a Calvin Johnson type, a Larry Fitzgerald type, I'm in. I don't think these guys are that. Waddle, Smith, I don't see that out of them. I think they'll be good players, but I don't see that out of them. Last one. If this coach staff can't develop wide receivers, something's wrong. Well, yeah, it'd be a big red flag because this coaching staff is led by a head coach whose specialty was wide receivers. That's where he came from. Like Doug Peterson, he was hired in part, they were going to get a young quarterback, and Carson developed Carson, and they did, right? They took Carson from North Dakota State, second year's MVP candidate. Then they get Foles from where he was, and they won a Super Bowl with him. So that worked. Like Doug, especially quarterbacks, and for the most part, they got a lot out of the quarterbacks they had under Doug Peterson. And now Sirianni, wide receivers, hopefully he gets more of the Raegers of the world. Maybe Fulgham reemerges into something after the way he played, and we watched him last October. All right, great fun AMA here tonight. I appreciate every single one of you guys in that hop in these comment sections and watch these shows. This is awesome. Love doing these before the Phillies game starts. So we have the Phillies on WIP coming up. You guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll be back tomorrow night to do another one of these before the draft, a reaction one on Friday. And remember, full draft show on WIP Thursday night. Myself, Glenn Macnow, Ike Reese, Elliot Shore-Parks, Howard Eskin. We're even letting Howard into this thing. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you for watching, and appreciate all of you taking some time to watch this here on our